They had 500 of us over at the that location. But it was all, part of the system. What the hell? So I think it was okay.
What was your degree in?
Hmm?
What did you get your degree in?
Electrical engineering.
Okay.
And then I went to work for 3 months for the State Corporation Commission. But I couldn't stay in that job. I just quit and applied for the Navy here at Naval Air Station at Chincoteague. And I got in, and I was there until 55, and then I went to work for what was then NACA, the precursor of NASA. And then in 1958, they became NASA and took over the air station because the Navy had moved out. And so I was there for that, and, which I'm glad it did. But
what did you do here at the Naval Air Station, Chincoteague?
while it was under the Navy,
Yes.
engineering, on bombing. The Korean War had started, and by the way, I had orders to go to the Korean War. I received orders before that. Had bus tickets, meal tickets, and everything to go to Richmond. So it said at the end of the letter, if you know of any reason why you shouldn't go, write a letter to Admiral so-and-so at the 5th Naval District. I thought, well, it's worth the chance. So I wrote to him and explained the situation, and he let me off. So I didn't have to go. I just stayed on, went to work. And we mainly, they did a lot of skip bombing. It was during the Korean War. Plane would fly in low, drop a bomb, and skip across the water and hit. And they did the practice on Wallops. And I was involved in that. I remember one day I was driving the Jeep there in the island, and I looked at the corner of my eye, here comes this bomb. So, dummy, of course, where they had dropped and missed the target, and it was just skipping down the aisle. Stuff like that was what we did. And
tell me about your time at NASA.
Well, I was in the instrumentation section. We were responsible for all the instrumentation on Wallops, for computers, radars, communications, telemetry, and I eventually became head of the section, and I remained there. And that was, sometimes we had projects off the coast of South America on the west coast, like launching scout rocket 1,000 miles up in, I don't know what the scientific investigation was, but responsible for that. And providing instrumentation to accomplish that. I had radars and telemetry, photography, all that stuff. We had some radars that were 60-footers. The new ones were the FPS-16, FPQ-6 were precision tracking radars. So that's what I did. And it was worthwhile, I think.
You have mentioned before in the past about the project you worked on about...
The what?
You've mentioned in the past about a project you worked on involving the moon and putting the monkeys on the moon.
Well, of course, our part in the moon landings were I guess, from a station van, minor. We were tracking the rockets when they took off with the radars and see that they got in orbit and all that. But we didn't have any direct, I'd say, involvement in the moon landing. But I met all of the astronauts that came to Wallops because we launched the first capsule from Wallops with the monkey in it. We launched that, and the astronauts came up. The astronauts to be came up, I remember, and I met them all 7 of them there. And that's.
What was that like?
Well, they were just guys like the rest of us.
You need a break?
Huh?
So, was it easy for you to transition into the civilian world after coming out of the Navy? What was your transition like?
No, I didn't have any trouble. None at all.
Overall, how do you feel about your service? Is there anything you would have done differently?
No, I don't think so. I remember when I was ready to get out of the Navy, my time was up. They had the largest aircraft carrier of the day, the Midway, was in Portsmouth for the fitting out at the Navy Yard. Norfolk Navy Yard's in Portsmouth. And they were all round the world cruise. I almost signed up for 2 years for that, but I didn't. I think I was lucky. That kind of was impressed me. I don't know why.
What memory stands out the most to you?
Of the Navy? That storm we were in North Sea, between Greenland and Scotland. The wind was, it's not cyclonic up there, straight across the Atlantic. And we were getting too close to Scotland when the captain decided he better turn around. Of course, I think that near broach scared the hell out of him. I think that's what really caused him to turn. So that's when we turned around. But he caught the wind just right, and she whipped right around. And no trouble at all. I didn't realize that the Azores were such a mountain chain. They're 400-mile chain. And they stick up out of the sea like sore thumbs, so as the saying goes. And I didn't know that before.
Did your military experience influence your thinking about the military or war in general?
Yeah, I think it did.
How so?
I think it made me appreciate the military some and the problems they have serving under different presidents with different ideas, and like it is today. But we've gotten by so far, but I don't know about from here on. I'm leery of it. But democracy is the worst form of government there is, except for all other kinds. I think he's right.
So, how has this area, or how has Hampton Roads, talking about across, how has that changed since the war? How has Hampton Roads,
for one
particularly
thing,
north
Virginia Beach has become a city, a fair-sized city, and at that time there was not a few houses there, and that was all. And the Cavalier Hotel stood out like a sore thumb on the beach. Now you probably can't find it. So it's been a big change in Newport News. And Norfolk never seemed to progress very much. I don't know why, but I would have thought that. Okay, she's got it. I would have thought they would have expanded and become what is now Virginia Beach, a part of Norfolk, but it didn't. But it was a big change over there, I'll say that.
Anything in particularly about Norfolk that has changed?
I can say some of the better didn't change. It just hadn't grown much. Norfolk hadn't. From my observation, it was Chesapeake wasn't a city. Virginia Beach wasn't even any people out there hardly. There was a naval station from which I was discharged on the what is now Northampton Boulevard. I've forgotten the name of it, but that's where I got my discharge papers. And you know, it was on the left side going east. Whatever the name of it was, now I've forgotten, because it was only a pass-through station. But
how did your service in the Navy affect your work thereafter? You know, how can you make any connections between your training in the Navy and what you did after, whether it was? You know,
yeah, I think so. It associated me with might say a large group of people, like the crew. We had 1,000 in the crew. When the flight was aboard, when the flight crew was aboard, we had 1,000, which is small compared to the big carriers. But yeah, I think that taught me a lot about people and organizations. You know, everybody can't do what they want to do. You have to do what generally is best. I think it was good.
What would you like people to know or remember about from you telling your story about your time in the Navy and thereafter? Is there anything that you want people to know, remember?
I'd like for them to remember Pearl Harbor, and to not. He can't be a conventional leader. He has to be forward. He has to be unorthodox to really lead in times of war and times of like the moon shot, for instance. If John Kennedy as president had not said, we're going to do this, we would never have done it. And Trump said the same thing about Mars. And
How would you assess FDR and Truman's?
Well, he was somewhat that way. He was gutsy. I guess he was at the time considered to be a leftist. I don't know. He had started the CCC, Civilian Conservation Corps, and they did some good, I think. Whether it was worth it or not, I don't know. But it takes people like that to do things with a whole country like the size of the United States. I don't think you could leave it up to the average Joe Blow. I don't think they have enough power to do anything. I mean, you might have as good ideas as president, but you don't have the authority. And he does, especially if he's aggressive.
What about your involvement with any organizations or Can you talk a little bit about any reunions that you've been to?
The what?
Any reunions you've been to?
Yeah, I used to go to that little paper I gave you. It had
Okay.
reunions. I first started in 50 years after D-Day, whatever that was. June 6th, 94. That was the first reunion I went to. But at last, there were so few people. I think the last one I went to was I was 93. That was 6 years ago. There were very few people there, maybe a total of 7 or 8, 10. And we voted not to have any more because people were too old and were not going. So I think that was a good thing.
About any veterans organizations?
Huh? And
About any veteran organizations you're a member of, or been
No,
involved in?
there are no. I'm not. I don't really like most of those organizations. I think there are a lot of fakes. That's my view.
Is there anything else that we haven't covered or I haven't asked you that you want to elaborate on or talk about more?
I don't know. I doubt that generally the people would be interested in some of the things. I learned a lot as being section head at NASA about people. About when you got, I had about 35 engineers under me. And, you know, some so-called men, they get up and make speeches about everything. I'm not that type. And in fact, I never had a section meeting while I was there, and I was there 20 years. I went around and talked to people and see what they thought, really thought. That's just my bent. I'm not a publicity seeker. I think that Bob Krieger, who was the director of the station, I came to appreciate him more and more as time went by. He was not a speech maker. You hear these guys then before Congress making speeches. A lot of full of hooey. But he was not that type. He was down to earth and could you get the job done? That was his approach. He was a practical person, which at times I guess is a hindrance, but most of the time it's a good approach, I think.
Okay.
He died in, I think, 97. Anything else you want to?
No. Thank you for taking the time to share your recollections, and on behalf of our museum, thank you for your service.
Well, I jokingly, I say I got all the time I want, but I know that's not true at 99.
Right.
You know. But anyway, I've had a healthy life, and everybody has to go sometime.
Okay then. Well, thank you for sharing.
Well, thank you.